The deep void of space stretched endlessly around the human exploration vessel UES. Defiant as it cruised through the star lanes of the galactic trade route, Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge, watching the massive alien cargo ships move through space like giants among ants. His vessel looked tiny compared to the enormous alien craft that dominated the shipping lanes between Nexus Prime and the Outer Rim colonies. "Captain, we're picking up dozens of alien vessels on long-range sensors," reported Communications Officer Riley Torres from her station. Her fingers danced across the console as she tried to make sense of the alien signals flooding their systems. The ships appeared to be military escorts protecting a massive cargo fleet. Kane nodded and moved closer to the main view screen. The alien ships were unlike anything in the human database. Their hulls gleamed with a metallic purple finish, and energy signatures indicated weapon systems far more advanced than anything Earth had produced. Each vessel was at least 10 times larger than the Defiant, with some of the cargo ships stretching over 5 kilometers in length. "Have you tried establishing contact?" Kane asked. "Yes, sir. I've been broadcasting standard first contact protocols for the past 30 minutes, Torres replied. "I'm transmitting in 12 different languages, including the 3 alien dialects we learned from the Centauri traders." No response so far. Weapons Officer Jake Morrison looked up from his tactical display. "Captain, those ships are heavily armed. I'm reading plasma cannons, torpedo tubes, and some kind of energy weapon I can't identify. They could vaporize us." "Without breaking stride?" Kane frowned. The human exploration program had always emphasized peaceful contact with alien species. The Defiant carried defensive weapons, but nothing that could match the firepower of a single alien escort ship, let alone an entire fleet. Still, first contact protocols demanded that they try to establish communication. "Keep trying, Torres. Use every frequency we have available." Chief Engineer Emma Walsh emerged from the lift, wiping grease from her hands with a dirty rag. "Captain, I've been monitoring their engine signatures. These ships are using some kind of antimatter propulsion system that's decades ahead of our technology. They're not just bigger than us, they're faster too." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The human race had always known they were newcomers to the galactic community, but facing such advanced technology firsthand was humbling. Kane had hoped their first major contact with an alien civilization would be more promising. "Sir, I'm getting something," Torres announced suddenly. "It's not a response to our hails, but I'm picking up internal communications between their ships. The translator is working on it now." Everyone waited as the computer processed the alien language. After several minutes, Torres's face went pale. "Captain, you're not going to like this. What is it?" "They're not ignoring us because they can't hear us. They're ignoring us because they consider us beneath notice. The translation is rough, but one of their commanders just referred to us as space debris and ordered his ships to maintain course without deviation." Morrison's hands tightened on his console. "Space debris? We're broadcasting on every frequency, following all the standard protocols, and they think we're garbage floating in space?" Kane felt a cold anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. "What else can you pick up from their communications?" Torres worked frantically at her station. "Give me a moment, sir. The computer is learning their language." "Patterns." After another few minutes, she looked up with alarm. "Captain, they're not just cargo ships. This is an invasion fleet." "What?" "Their destination is New Terra. From what I can translate, they're planning to establish a mining operation there. They refer to the human colonists as primitive laborers, who will be relocated for optimal productivity." Navigator Alex Chun spun around in his chair. "New Terra has over 2 million colonists, including families with children. They can't just relocate an entire planet's population." Kane's jaw tightened. New Terra was one of humanity's most successful colonies, a peaceful farming world that supplied food to dozens of human settlements. The thought of these arrogant aliens treating human beings as slave labor made his blood boil. "Torres, try again to establish contact. Make it clear that New Terra is under human protection and any hostile action will be considered an act of war." Torres nodded and began transmitting. This time she received an immediate response. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the alien flagship. A tall, reptilian creature with gleaming scales and cold yellow eyes stared at them with obvious contempt. "Inferior species," the alien spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "You dare to threaten the mighty Vorthek Empire? Your pathetic vessel is not even worth the energy required to destroy it. Retreat now, or be swept aside like the cosmic dust you resemble." Kane stepped forward. "I am Captain Marcus Kane of the United Earthship Defiant. New Terra is a human colony under our protection. We demand that you change course immediately." The alien leader threw back his head and laughed, a harsh sound that grated on human ears. "Demand? You make demands of Fleet Commander Grix Vorthak? Your entire species is nothing more than an infestation that we will soon correct. The world you call New Terra will serve the Empire, as will its inhabitants. Consider this your only warning. Human, depart or share their fate." The communication cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Kane stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The Vorthek commander's casual dismissal of human life was chilling, but what worried him more was the certainty in the alien's voice. This wasn't an empty threat. "Morrison, what's our tactical situation?" Kane asked. "Not good, sir. We're outnumbered 50-1, and each of their escort ships outguns us by a factor of 10. If we tried to fight them conventionally, we'd last maybe 30 seconds. Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her sensor readings. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. They're not just planning to conquer New Terra, they're preparing to bombard any resistance into submission." Kane closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. 2 million innocent people were counting on him to find a solution. But what could one small ship do against an entire invasion fleet? The Vorthak had made it clear they viewed humans as insects, not worthy of respect or even basic consideration. "Sir," Chun said quietly, "New Terra's defense force consists of 3 patrol boats and a handful of orbital platforms. They won't even slow down an invasion fleet this size." Kane opened his eyes and looked around at his crew. These were good people, brave men and women who had volunteered to explore the unknown for the betterment of humanity. Now they faced an enemy that didn't even consider them worthy opponents. "Torres, send a priority message to Earth Command. Inform them of the situation and request immediate military assistance." "Sir, even if they dispatch a fleet immediately? It would take weeks to reach New Terra. The Vorthek will arrive in less than 2 days." Kane nodded grimly. He had known the timeline would be impossible, but he had to try every option. The Defiant was alone, facing an enemy that possessed overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and firepower. But sometimes being underestimated could be an advantage. "Morrison, I need a complete analysis of their weapon systems and defensive capabilities." "Walsh, how much can you push our engines without causing a critical failure?" "Park, start scanning for any weaknesses in their formation or technology." As his crew rushed to carry out his orders, Kane continued to stare at the alien fleet on the viewscreen. The Vorthak had made a crucial mistake. They had revealed their intentions while assuming the humans were too weak to matter. That arrogance might be the only weapon humanity had left. The invasion fleet continued its inexorable advance toward New Terra. But now the small human vessel followed in its wake, no longer seeking communication, but preparing for something far more dangerous. The UES Defiant pushed through space at maximum velocity, its engines straining to keep pace with the Vorthek invasion fleet. Chief Engineer Emma Walsh had been working non-stop for 8 hours, coaxing every bit of power from the ship's propulsion systems while somehow keeping them from overloading completely. "Engineering to bridge," Walsh's voice crackled over the COM system. "Captain, I've got the engines running at 112% capacity, but I can't guarantee how long they'll hold. We're generating heat faster than the cooling systems can handle." Captain Marcus Kane wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the tactical display. The Defiant was slowly gaining on the alien fleet, but at a terrible cost. If the engines failed now, they would be stranded in deep space while the Vorthak continued toward New Terra. How much time do we have? Kane asked. Maybe 6 hours at this pace before we risk a complete power failure, Walsh replied. After that, we'll need to drop back to normal speed for at least 12 hours to let everything cool down. Kane did the calculations in his head. 6 hours would put them within communication range of the Vorthak rearguard, but it wouldn't be enough time to reach New Terra before the invasion began. Still, it was better than nothing, communications officer. Riley Torres looked up from her station with excitement. Captain, I've been monitoring Vorthak communications for the past several hours, and the computer has made significant progress in translating their language. I'm now understanding about 70% of their transmissions. What are they saying? Torres's expression darkened. It's worse than we thought, sir. This isn't just about New Terra. The Vorthak have been systematically conquering peaceful worlds across this entire sector. They've enslaved over a dozen species in the past 5 years alone. Navigator Alex Chun pulled up a star chart on his display. I've been tracking their previous movements based on the communication intercepts. Look at this pattern, Captain. They always target agricultural worlds or planets with valuable mineral resources. They strip mine everything useful and use the native populations as forced labor. Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park shook her head in disgust. The readings I'm getting from their cargo hold suggest they're already carrying thousands of enslaved beings from other worlds. This is industrial-scale slavery on a galactic level. Kane felt sick to his stomach. The human race had encountered its first major alien civilization, and it turned out to be an empire built on conquest and slavery. The Vorthak weren't just threatening New Terra, they were threatening the fundamental values that humanity held dear. Sir, we're within long-range communication range of their fleet, Torres announced. Should I try to establish contact again? Kane hesitated. Their first attempt at communication had been met with contempt and threats. But maybe if the Vorthak understood the consequences of their actions, they might reconsider. It was a slim hope, but he had to try. Open a channel to their flagship. The view screen flickered to life, showing the same reptilian commander they had spoken with before. Fleet Commander Grix Vorthak looked even more annoyed than during their previous conversation. The persistent insects return, Grix sneered. I thought I made myself clear, human. Your presence here is unwelcome and unnecessary. Kane stepped forward, trying to project more confidence than he felt. Commander Grix, I'm contacting you one final time to warn you that any attack on New Terra will be considered an act of war against the United Earth government. We have documented your intentions and transmitted that information to our military command. If you proceed with this invasion, you will face the full might of the human fleet. Grix threw back his head and laughed, the same harsh sound that had grated on their nerves before. The full might of the human fleet? And how many ships would that be, Insect? 10? 20? The Vorthak Empire commands over 10,000 vessels across 50 star systems. Your entire species could not challenge even one of our patrol groups. Nevertheless, Kane continued, we will not allow you to enslave innocent people. Turn away now, and we can discuss this peacefully. The alien commander's yellow eyes narrowed with rage. Discuss? You dare to negotiate with your superiors? The Vorthak Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. We take what we require and dispose of any obstacles in our path. Grix gestured to someone off-screen, and additional Vorthak officers appeared on the view screen. They were examining what appeared to be a tactical display showing various conquered worlds. Perhaps you require a demonstration of Vorthak power, Grix continued. Your species has established several monitoring stations throughout this sector. We have already identified 3 of them. Watch carefully, Insect, and see what happens to those who oppose the Empire. The communication channel switched to an external view from one of the Vorthak warships. Kane watched in horror as the alien fleet changed course slightly, heading toward a small space station orbiting a distant moon. The station was barely visible against the starfield, but Kane recognized it as Outpost 7, a human research facility that monitored asteroid movements in the system. No, Kane breathed. Those are civilian researchers. Weapons Officer Jake Morrison was frantically working at his console. Captain, I'm detecting 37 life signs on that station. They have no weapons, no shields, nothing but basic life support systems. The Vorthak warships opened fire without warning. Brilliant beams of plasma energy lanced out from their weapon arrays, striking the helpless research station. The small facility exploded in a ball of superheated gas and debris, its hull torn apart like paper. In seconds, 37 innocent people were dead. The bridge of the Defiant fell silent except for the quiet hum of the life support systems. Torres had tears streaming down her face, while Chun stared at his console in shock. Morrison's hands were clenched into fists, and Walsh could be heard cursing over the open-com channel. Grix reappeared on the view screen, his reptilian features showing satisfaction. That is the fate of all who oppose the Vorthak Empire. Your monitoring stations exist only because we have allowed them to exist. Your colonies survive only because we have not yet required their resources. Do not mistake our tolerance for weakness, human. Kane found his voice, though it came out as barely controlled rage. You murdered innocent people. We eliminated an obstacle, Grix corrected. Just as we will eliminate any other obstacles that stand between the Empire and its objectives. Your colony on New Terra will serve us, or it will be destroyed. The choice is yours. And if we choose to fight, then you will die quickly instead of living as useful servants. Either way, the Empire benefits. Grix leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming with malice. But perhaps you still cling to hope, insect. Perhaps you believe your pathetic vessel can somehow interfere with our operations. Allow me to correct this delusion. The alien commander gestured again, and two of his escort ships moved to flank the Defiant. Kane could see their weapon systems powering up, energy readings climbing rapidly. You have 10 of your time units to retreat beyond our sensor range, Grix continued. If you are still following us after that time expires, we will demonstrate the same lesson we taught your research station. Do I make myself clear? Kane stared at the alien commander, feeling a cold fury building in his chest. The Vorthak had just committed mass murder to make a point, treating human lives as if they were completely worthless. Every instinct told him to fight back, to make them pay for their crimes, but the rational part of his mind knew it would be suicide. I understand, Kane said finally. Excellent. Perhaps your species can learn wisdom after all. The communication ended abruptly. Kane turned to his crew, seeing the same mixture of rage and helplessness in their faces that he felt in his own heart. The Vorthak had made their position clear. Humanity was nothing more than an annoyance to be swept aside when convenient. Captain, Morrison said quietly, we can't just let them get away with this. No, Kane agreed, we can't. But we also can't throw our lives away in a hopeless gesture. Torres, did you record everything that just happened? Yes, sir, every word. And every sensor reading. Good. Transmit it all to Earth Command and New Terra Defense Command. Make sure everyone knows what we're dealing with. Kane paused, looking at the tactical display showing the Vorthak fleet's continued advance. Morrison, I need you to run a complete analysis of their weapons and defensive systems. Look for any weakness, any vulnerability we can exploit. Sir, even if we find something, we're still just one ship against an entire fleet. Kane nodded grimly. I know. But sometimes one ship is all it takes to change the course of history. As the Defiant fell back to maintain distance from the Vorthak fleet, Kane continued to watch the alien ships on his view screen. The enemy had shown their true nature, revealing themselves as ruthless conquerors who valued other species' lives at exactly nothing. They had also made a critical error. They had assumed that one small human ship could never pose a serious threat to their mighty fleet. That assumption might prove to be their downfall. The destruction of Outpost 7 had changed everything aboard the UES Defiant. The crew moved with grim purpose as they shadowed the Vorthak invasion fleet from a distance. no longer attempting diplomacy but gathering intelligence for what was becoming inevitable. Captain Marcus Kane had spent the last 18 hours in his ready room, studying every scrap of data they had collected about the alien vessels. Science. Officer Dr. Lisa Park entered the ready room carrying a data tablet and wearing the exhausted expression of someone who had been working without sleep. Captain, I've completed my analysis of the Vorthic weapon systems. Kane looked up from his own reports. What did you find? Their plasma cannons are incredibly powerful, but they have a significant weakness. Each weapon requires a full 30 seconds to recharge between shots, and they can only fire 3 volleys before needing a 2-minute cooling period. It's the price of using such high-energy weapons. Kane leaned back in his chair. That's useful information, but it doesn't change the fact that each of their ships has dozens of those plasma cannons. Even with the recharge time, they could still overwhelm us. Park nodded. True, but there's something else. Their ships are designed for fighting large, heavily armored opponents. The targeting systems are calibrated for capital ship engagements, not for tracking small, fast-moving targets. If we could get close enough and stay mobile, we might be able to avoid their fire long enough to accomplish something. Define something. I'm not sure yet, sir, but I'm working on it. Park left the ready room, and Kane returned to his data analysis. The more he learned about the Vorthic Empire, the more disgusted he became. Their communication intercepts revealed a civilization built entirely on conquest and exploitation. They had destroyed dozens of peaceful species over the past century, viewing other forms of life as nothing more than resources to be harvested. The bridge com system chimed. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came the urgent voice of communications. Officer Riley Torres. Kane hurried to the bridge to find his crew gathered around the main view screen, their faces pale with shock. The display showed another human facility, this one a small mining operation on an asteroid. The Vorthak fleet was approaching it with obvious hostile intent. How many people? Kane asked. 43, Navigator Alex Chun replied. Mostly miners and their families. They have no defenses, no way to evacuate. Kane watched helplessly as the alien warships opened fire on the defenseless facility. The mining operation was vaporized in seconds, another 43 innocent lives snuffed out to demonstrate Vorthic's superiority. The casual brutality of it made Kane's stomach turn. That's the third facility they've destroyed, Weapons Officer Jake Morrison said through gritted teeth. They're not even slowing down to do it. It's like swatting flies to them. Chief Engineer Emma Walsh emerged from the engineering deck, her face flushed with anger. Captain, I can't stand watching this anymore. We have to do something. Kane understood her frustration because he felt it himself. Every human instinct demanded that they fight back against this unprovoked aggression, but the rational part of his mind knew that a direct confrontation would only add their names to the list of casualties. Morrison, Kane said quietly, I need to know about our offensive capabilities, everything we have. Morrison looked surprised. Sir, our standard armament consists of 12 torpedo tubes and defensive pulse cannons. Against ships this size, we might as well be throwing rocks. What about non-standard armament? Morrison hesitated, glancing around at the other crew members. Sir, that information is classified. Jake, in about 24 hours, 2 million people are going to die unless we find a way to stop this fleet. I think we're past worrying about classification levels. Morrison nodded slowly. You're right, Captain. The Defiant has 4 concealed missile bays that weren't included in our public specifications. They contain experimental quantum warheads developed by Earth Defense Command. Each missile has approximately 50 times the destructive power of our standard torpedoes. Kane felt a spark of hope for the first time in hours. How many missiles? 16 total. The quantum warheads are designed to punch through heavy armor and detonate inside the target. In theory, they could cripple or destroy ships much larger than ourselves. In theory? They've never been tested against alien technology, sir. We don't know how effective they'll be against Vorthak shields and armor. Kane studied the tactical display showing the alien fleet's formation. 16 missiles against 50 warships were terrible odds, but it was better than nothing. What's the effective range? Much shorter than their plasma cannons. We'd need to get within 5,000 kilometers to guarantee target lock. At that range, we'd be well within their defensive perimeter. Torres looked up from her communications console. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from New Terra Defense Command. They're requesting an immediate status report on the approaching fleet. Kane sighed. Put them through. The view screen switched to show Admiral Robert Hayes, the military commander of New Terra's defense forces. Hayes was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and one of the most respected officers in the Earth fleet, but even he looked worried. Marcus, what's the situation out there? We're reading massive energy signatures approaching our system. Admiral, we're facing an invasion fleet of approximately 50 Vorthic Empire warships. They intend to conquer New Terra and enslave the population. For mining operations, I've attempted diplomatic contact, but they consider humans an inferior species unworthy of negotiation. Hayes's expression hardened. What are their capabilities? Each ship is 10 times our size and carries enough firepower to level a city. They've already destroyed 3 of our monitoring stations without provocation, killing over 100 civilians in the process. And our defensive capabilities? Kane hesitated. Admiral, with all due respect, your 3 patrol boats and orbital platforms won't even slow them down. This fleet has conquered dozens of worlds. They know how to break planetary defenses. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, I've known you for 15 years. You're not the type to give up without a fight. What are you planning? Kane glanced around at his crew, seeing determination in their faces despite the overwhelming odds. Sir, the Defiant has certain undisclosed capabilities that might allow us to inflict significant damage on their fleet. But it would be a suicide mission. How significant? If everything goes perfectly, we might be able to destroy or cripple 4 or 5 of their ships before they overwhelm us. It's not much, but it might buy you time to evacuate the civilian population. Hayes shook his head. Evacuation isn't possible, Marcus. We have 2 million people spread across 6 continents. There aren't enough transport ships in the entire sector to move even a fraction of them. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. New Terra was trapped, facing an enemy that had demonstrated complete ruthlessness towards civilian populations. The Defiant was the only thing standing between the Vorthek fleet and 2 million innocent people. Admiral, Kane said finally, I'm going to need you to trust me. Keep your defense forces in orbit around New Terra, but don't engage the Vorthek fleet when they arrive. Let them think they've won easily. Marcus, what are you planning? Something that either saves those people or gets us all killed trying. I'll contact you again in 18 hours. Kane ended the transmission and turned to face his crew. These were good people who had signed up for exploration and scientific research, not for a desperate battle against overwhelming odds. He couldn't ask them to follow him into what was almost certainly a suicide mission. I want everyone to understand the situation clearly, Kane began. In less than 24 hours, the Vorthak fleet will reach New Terra. They will demand the surrender of every human on the planet, and anyone who resists will be killed. The survivors will be forced into slavery for the rest of their lives. He paused, looking each crew member in the eye. I intend to stop them. The odds of success are minimal, and the odds of survival are even worse. Anyone who wants to be transferred to the escape pods has my permission to leave now. You can set course for the nearest human outpost and report what happened here. Morrison was the first to speak. Captain, my sister lives on New Terra with her family. I'm not running away. Neither am I, Torres added. Those colonists are counting on us. One by one, every crew member voiced their commitment to the mission. Even Chief Engineer Walsh, who had 3 children waiting for her back on Earth, chose to stay and fight. Kane felt a mixture of pride and sadness as he looked at his crew. They were about to attempt something that would likely get them all killed, but they were doing it for the right reasons. The Vorthic Empire had made a critical error when they assumed that humans would simply submit to superior force. All right then, Kane said. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten human lives. Morrison, I want those quantum missiles ready for deployment. Walsh, push the engines to maximum sustainable power. Torres, monitor their communications for any tactical information. Chun, plot an intercept course that keeps us in their sensor shadow until the last possible moment. As his crew rushed to carry out their orders, Kane took one last look at the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet continued its inexorable advance toward New Terra, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that the small human vessel they had dismissed as insignificant was about to teach them a lesson about underestimating their enemies. The die was cast. In less than a day, the UES Defiant would either strike a blow for freedom that would echo across the galaxy, or become another footnote in the Vorthak Empire's long history of conquest. Either way, they would not go quietly into the dark. The alarms on New Terra began wailing at dawn as the massive Vorthak invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. From the planet's surface, the alien ships appeared as bright stars against the morning sky. But orbital sensors revealed the true scale of the threat approaching the peaceful colony world. Governor Robert Hayes stood in the colony's main command center, watching the tactical displays with growing dread. 50 massive warships were moving in perfect formation toward New Terra, their weapons already powering up for bombardment. The planet's 3 patrol boats looked like insects compared to the alien dreadnoughts. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. Communications specialist Dana Mills reported from her station. Hayes nodded grimly. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the same reptilian commander that Captain Kane had faced days earlier. Fleet Commander Grix Vorthak looked even more arrogant than before, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipated victory. Inhabitants of the world designated New Terra, Grix announced in his harsh voice, you are now subjects of the Vorthak Empire. You will immediately cease all resistance and prepare for relocation to designated work zones. Any attempt to flee or fight will result in the complete destruction of your cities. Hayes stepped forward, his military training taking over despite the hopeless situation. I am Governor Hayes of the New Terra Colonial Authority. This world is under the protection of the United Earth Government. We demand that you withdraw. Immediately. Grix laughed, the same grating sound that had infuriated the crew of the Defiant. Demand? You are in no position to make demands, human. Your planet's defenses are pathetic, your population is defenseless, and your government is too distant to provide assistance. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation of your major cities, after which we will commence planetary bombardment. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Hayes looked around at his staff, seeing the same mixture of fear and helplessness in their faces that he felt in his own heart. New Terra had been settled by peaceful farmers and scientists, people who had come here to build a better life for their families. They had never imagined facing an enemy like this. Sir, what are your orders? Mills asked quietly. Hayes straightened his shoulders. Begin emergency evacuation procedures for the capital city. Get as many civilians as possible to the underground shelters. They might survive orbital bombardment if they're deep enough. What about the other cities? Do what we can, but focus on the largest population centers first. Hayes paused, looking at the display showing the approaching alien fleet, and send a priority message to the UES Defiant. If Captain Kane is still out there, he needs to know we're under attack. Meanwhile, far beyond New Terra's orbital defenses, the UES Defiant moved through space like a ghost. Captain Marcus Kane had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to minimize their energy signature, and Chief Engineer Emma Walsh had managed to mask their approach by hiding in the sensor shadow of a large asteroid. Captain, we're receiving Governor Hayes' transmission, Communications Officer Riley Torres reported. The Vorthak fleet has reached New Terra and begun bombardment preparations. Kane nodded, his face grim. They had timed their approach perfectly, arriving just as the alien fleet entered orbit around the planet. The Vorthag ships were so focused on their target that they had no idea a human vessel was moving to attack them from behind. Morrison, status on the quantum missiles? Kane asked. Weapons Officer Jake Morrison looked up from his tactical console. All 16 missiles are armed. And ready, sir. I've programmed them to target the largest ships in their formation, with primary focus on the flagship and the vessels carrying planet-killer weapons. Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park had been monitoring the alien fleet's energy patterns. Captain, I'm reading massive power buildups in their bombardment systems. They're preparing to fire on the planet's major cities. Kane felt his jaw tighten. The Vorthak weren't just planning to conquer New Terra, they intended to slaughter millions of innocent people to demonstrate their power. Every second of delay meant more civilian casualties. Chun, how close can you get us to their formation before they detect our approach? Navigator Alex Chun studied his display carefully. If we maintain current stealth protocols, I can get us within 7,000 kilometers before their sensors pick us up. That puts us well within missile range, but also well within their defensive perimeter. How long do we have once they detect us? Based on their weapon recharge rates, maybe 90 seconds before they can bring their full firepower to bear on our position. Kane did the calculations in his head. 90 seconds to fire all 16 quantum missiles and hopefully inflict enough damage to disrupt their bombardment of New Terra. It wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. All right, people, this is it. Chun, take us in. Morrison, prepare to fire all missiles on my command. Everyone else, brace for impact. Once we reveal ourselves, they're going to throw everything they have at us. The Defiant accelerated toward the alien fleet, its hull gleaming in the light of New Terra's sun. Kang watched the tactical display as the distance closed between his small ship and the massive Vorthak armada. 5,000 kilometers, 4,000, 3,000. Captain, they're detecting us, Torres announced. I'm picking up alarm signals throughout their fleet. Morrison, do you have target lock? Affirmative, sir. All missiles locked on primary targets. Fire! The Defiant shuddered as all 4 concealed missile bays opened simultaneously, releasing their deadly cargo into space. 16 quantum warheads streaked toward the alien fleet, their engines burning bright against the darkness. The missiles were small and fast, designed to penetrate enemy defenses before detonating their devastating payloads on board the Vorthak flagship. Fleet Commander Grix stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The pathetic human vessel that he had dismissed as harmless debris was suddenly launching a massive missile attack against his fleet. How had they gotten so close without being detected? All ships, defensive positions, Grix roared. Destroy that insignificant vessel immediately. The alien fleet began to turn their weapons toward the Defiant, but they were too late. The quantum missiles had already covered half the distance to their targets, and the Vorthak point defense systems were calibrated for much larger projectiles. Kane watched the missile tracks on his screen, counting down the seconds until impact. The first quantum warhead struck the Vorthak flagship shields, creating a brilliant flash of energy that momentarily blinded the bridge sensors. When the light faded, the flagship's shields were down and its hull was venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. The second and third missiles found their targets on the massive dreadnoughts that carried the planet-killer weapons. Both ships erupted in spectacular explosions as their ammunition magazines detonated, sending shockwaves through the entire fleet formation. 2 more missiles crippled a pair of cruisers, leaving them drifting helplessly in space, but the remaining Vorthak ships were already returning fire. Brilliant beams of plasma energy lanced out toward the Defiant, forcing Kane to order evasive maneuvers. The ship bucked and rolled as Walsh pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, trying to keep ahead of the alien weapons. Direct hit on the port engine, Walsh reported over the comm system. We're losing power and maneuvering capability. Kane gripped his command chair as another plasma beam scorched past the bridge viewports. The Defiant was hurt and surrounded by enemies, but they had accomplished their primary objective. The Vorthak bombardment of New Terra had been disrupted, and 5 of their largest ships were either destroyed or crippled. Morrison, do we have any weapons left? Negative, sir. All missiles expended, and our pulse cannons don't have the power to penetrate their armor. Another plasma beam struck the Defiant's hull, sending sparks flying from multiple consoles. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, and the lights dimmed as power systems began failing throughout the vessel. Captain, Torres said urgently. We're being hailed by the Vorthik flagship. Put it through. Fleet Commander Grix appeared on the view screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage. Behind him, Kane could see damage control teams working frantically to repair the systems that the quantum missiles had destroyed. Impossible, Grix snarled. How could an inferior species like yours develop such weapons? Our intelligence reports claim that humans possess no military technology of significance. Kane managed a grim smile despite their desperate situation. You made the mistake of believing your own propaganda, Commander. Humans are very good at developing new ways to kill things that threaten our families. Your pathetic gesture has accomplished nothing, Grix roared. You have destroyed 5 ships, but 45 remain. We will still conquer your world, and now we will make its population suffer for your insolence. Maybe, Kane admitted, but you'll remember this day for the rest of your life. The day a single human ship taught the mighty Vorthik Empire that we're not as helpless as you thought. Grix's eyes narrowed with fury. You will have time to contemplate your folly in our interrogation chambers, human. We will keep you alive long enough to watch your species burn. The communication ended just as multiple plasma beams converged on the Defiant's position. Kane closed his eyes and waited for the end, knowing that his crew had done everything possible to protect the innocent people of New Terra. But the killing blow never came. Instead, Kane opened his eyes to see 3 Vorthik ships exploding in brilliant fireballs. More explosions followed as additional alien vessels were torn apart by weapons fire from an unexpected source. Captain, Torres said with amazement in her voice, we're receiving a transmission from the New Terra Defense Fleet. Admiral Hayes is leading a full attack on the Vorthak formation. Kane looked at the tactical display and felt his heart leap with hope. The 3 patrol boats that he had written off as ineffective were moving through the alien fleet like sharks among dolphins, their weapons targeting the ships that the quantum missiles had already damaged. The Vorthak vessels, still reeling from the unexpected human attack, were struggling to coordinate their response, but more importantly, the delay had given New Terra's population time to reach the underground shelters. The planet's cities were empty of civilians, meaning that even if the Vorthak resumed their bombardment, the casualties would be minimal. The tide of battle was turning, and the arrogant alien empire was learning a hard lesson about underestimating human determination. The Defiant had struck the first blow, but the fight for New Terra was far from over. The space around New Terra had become a battlefield, unlike anything the galaxy had seen in decades. The once mighty Vorthik invasion fleet was in complete chaos as the remaining ships tried to regroup after the devastating quantum missile attack from the UES Defiant. Fleet Commander Grix stood on his damaged flagship's bridge, watching in disbelief as 3 small human patrol boats moved through his formation like wolves among sheep. How is this possible? Grix roared at his tactical officer. These humans were supposed to be primitive. Their weapons were supposed to be inferior. The tactical officer, a younger Vorthak with nervous scales, stammered his response. Sir, our intelligence was based on their public technology demonstrations. They apparently concealed their true military capabilities. Grix's yellow eyes burned with fury. 45 ships remain. We still outnumber them 15-1. Destroy these insects immediately. But the Vorthik fleet was learning that numbers alone did not guarantee victory. The human vessels were smaller and faster than anything the aliens had faced before, and their tactics were completely unpredictable. Admiral Robert Hayes had spent his entire career studying asymmetric warfare, and he was putting every lesson to use. On board the lead patrol boat UES Guardian, Hayes watched his tactical display with grim satisfaction. The quantum missiles from the Defiant had crippled the Vorthic's largest ships, leaving only the medium cruisers and destroyers in fighting condition. More importantly, the alien formation had broken apart, allowing his small force to engage individual targets instead of facing concentrated firepower. "Target the damaged cruiser on our starboard side," Hayes ordered. "Focus fire on their engine sections." The Guardian's pulse cannons opened fire, joined by weapons from the other two patrol boats. The concentrated barrage overwhelmed the alien cruiser's weakened shields and tore into its propulsion systems. The massive ship began to drift helplessly, its engines dark and its weapons offline. Meanwhile, Captain Marcus Kane was fighting for his ship's life aboard the heavily damaged Defiant. The vessel had taken multiple hits from Vorthak plasma weapons, and Chief Engineer Emma Walsh was performing miracles just keeping the life support systems operational. "Captain, we've lost main power to the weapon systems," Weapons Officer Jake Morrison reported. "All I have left are the emergency pulse batteries, and they won't penetrate alien armor." Kane nodded, his mind racing through their limited options. The Defiant was effectively out of the fight, but they had accomplished their primary mission. The quantum missile attack had bought new terror, the time it needed to evacuate civilians, and had thrown the invasion fleet into disarray. "Torres, can you establish communication with the Vorthak flagship?" Kane asked. Communications Officer Riley Torres worked at her damaged console. "I think so, sir, but our transmitter is operating at minimum power." "Do it!" The main view screen flickered to life, showing Fleet Commander Grix on his equally damaged bridge. The alien commander looked like a cornered animal, his reptilian features twisted with rage and humiliation. "You!" Grix snarled when he saw Kane. "Your pathetic vessel should have been destroyed hours ago. How do you still live?" Kane managed a tired smile. "Because humans are harder to kill than you thought, Commander, and more determined than you imagined. This changes nothing. My fleet will still conquer your world." Kane gestured toward his tactical display, which showed the ongoing battle around New Terra. "Look around you, Grix. Your fleet is scattered. Your largest ships are destroyed or crippled, and you're being hunted by vessels a fraction of your size. Is this what Vorthak superiority looks like?" Grix glanced at his own tactical readouts, and Kane could see the growing doubt in the alien's eyes. The mighty invasion fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was being systematically dismantled by a handful of human ships using tactics the Vorthak had never encountered. "Even if you defeat us here," Grix said desperately, "the Empire will send more fleets. Hundreds of ships will come to avenge this insult." "Maybe," Kane acknowledged. "But they'll know they're fighting humans, not helpless victims. And every ship you send will face the same reception this fleet received." The communication was interrupted by another massive explosion as one of the Vorthak destroyers erupted in flames. Admiral Hayes had coordinated a 3-ship attack that overwhelmed the alien vessel's defenses, adding another kill to the human tally. Kane could see the fear growing in Grix's eyes as the alien commander realized that his supposedly invincible fleet was being defeated by an enemy he had dismissed as insignificant. The reputation of Vorthak invincibility, built over centuries of conquest, was crumbling in a single battle. "This is impossible," Grix whispered. "We are the masters of the galaxy. We have conquered 50 worlds. How can we be defeated by primitives?" "Because you made the same mistake that every tyrant makes," Kane replied. "You believed your own propaganda. You convinced yourself that might makes right, that superior technology automatically means superior beings. But you forgot about something. That can't be measured in weapon yields or shield strength." "What?" "The will to fight for something bigger than yourself. Every human in this battle knows that we're fighting for the freedom of 2 million innocent people." "What are you fighting for, Grix? The glory of your empire? The fear of your superiors? That's not enough when the stakes are this high." Another Vorthak ship exploded in the distance, its hull torn apart by coordinated human weapons fire. The alien fleet was down to less than 30 operational vessels, and their formation had completely collapsed. What had begun as a routine conquest had become a catastrophic defeat, Science Officer Dr. Lisa Park's voice crackled over the Defiant's COM system. Captain, I'm detecting hyperspace signatures throughout the system. Multiple ships are jumping in. Kane felt his heart sink. If Vorthek reinforcements were arriving, the human victory would be short-lived. But when the new ships materialized from hyperspace, Kane was amazed to see that they weren't Vorthek vessels at all. Sleek ships with unfamiliar hull configurations were appearing throughout the system, their weapons already trained on the alien fleet. Torres was frantically working to translate the incoming communications. Captain, I'm getting transmissions in at least 6 different alien languages, Torres reported. The computer is having trouble translating, but I think they're identifying themselves as representatives of species that were previously conquered by the Vorthek Empire. Kane stared at the tactical display in amazement. Word of the battle had somehow spread beyond the new Terra system, and other species that had suffered under Vorthek oppression were arriving to join the fight. The human resistance had sparked something much larger than anyone had imagined. Fleet Commander Grix watched in horror as ships from a dozen different species surrounded his battered fleet. These were civilizations that the Vorthak had enslaved or destroyed over the past century, and they had come seeking revenge. Surrender now, Kane transmitted to the alien flagship, and I'll guarantee that you and your surviving crew will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting, and I can't protect you from species that have very good reasons to hate the Vorthek Empire. Grix looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same fear in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. The mighty fleet that had entered this system with such confidence was now outnumbered 3-1 by enemies, who would show no mercy. Grix began, then stopped. For the first time in his career, the proud Vorthek commander was facing defeat, and he didn't know how to process it. The decision was made for him when his tactical officer reported that the remaining ships were requesting permission to surrender. The Vorthek Empire's reputation for invincibility had been shattered, and their crews knew that continued resistance would only lead to complete annihilation. We surrender, Grix said quietly, his voice barely audible. Kane nodded. Attention. All vessels, this is Captain Kane of the UES Defiant. The Vorthek fleet has surrendered. All ships are to cease fire immediately and prepare to take prisoners according to galactic conventions. As the guns fell silent throughout the system, Kane looked around at his battered bridge crew. They had done the impossible, turning a hopeless situation into a complete victory. But more than that, they had sent a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Hours later, as the surviving Vorthek ships were being escorted to detention facilities, Kane stood in the command center on New Terra. Governor Hayes and Admiral Hayes were both present, along with representatives from the dozen alien species that had joined the battle. Captain, Governor Hayes said, I don't know how to thank you. Your actions saved 2 million lives. Kane shook his head. We all saved them, Governor. This was a team effort from start to finish. One of the alien representatives, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms, stepped forward. Captain Kane, I represent the Zentari Republic. We were enslaved by the Vorthek Empire for 30 years before we managed to escape. Your victory here has given hope to every species suffering under their oppression. Similar statements came from the other alien representatives. The Vorthek Empire had made enemies throughout the galaxy, and the human victory at New Terra had shown that the supposedly invincible conquerors could be defeated. Dr. Park approached Kane with a data tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing the communication intercepts from the battle. The news of our victory is spreading faster than light travel. Every species in this sector knows that humans defeated a Vorthek invasion fleet. Kane nodded thoughtfully. What does that mean for us? It means we're no longer the unknown species that everyone ignores, Park replied. We're the species that prove the Vorthek Empire can be beaten. Every enslaved world, every conquered civilization is going to be looking to us for leadership. Kane felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The human race had entered this battle trying to save one colony world. Instead, they had ignited a galactic revolution that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Sir, Torres said from her communications station, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. They want a full report. On recent events, Kane smiled. Tell them that humanity just became a major player in galactic politics. And remind them that it all started because someone tried to ignore a human vessel. As the UES Defiant prepared for the long journey home, Kane looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The Vorthic Empire was still out there, still powerful, but they would never again dismiss humans as primitives. Other species were already requesting formal alliances with Earth, eager to join forces against their common enemy. The galaxy had learned an important lesson at New Terra. When you ignore someone who's trying to talk to you, you might just find out what their missiles have to say instead. And in humanity's case, those missiles spoke very eloquently indeed.